recorded. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the things that has presented itself, that's probably the best way to describe it, is around my writing style.
Okay.
And the catalyst for it was there was a notification on Audible that an author that I've been following for a while is releasing a new book entitled words to the effect about fearless honesty in writing.
Okay.
And it sort of captured my imagination a little bit because I'm listening to an audio book at the moment, and the author writes in lots of sweeping generalizations and over the top, in my opinion, use of adjectives. And for me, part of the writing style just doesn't seem honest. It like I find myself when I'm listening to it say, just say what you mean. Just say what you mean.
Okay.
Don't dress it up in all of these adjectives and analogies and that. It's just like, just say what you mean. So I'm sort of keen to get into this other book, which is not released until I think about the 5th of October. And the idea around that, combined with how I'm sort of feeling about some of the audio books I've been listening to, you know, this whole idea of this fearlessness, but underpinned by this honesty, you know.
Right.
So I'm keen to explore that a bit more. Not saying that my writing style necessarily is flowery or whatever, but I just sort of see it as something which could put a real hone and edge to how I write and the logic of how I write and the structure of ideas that I put down in writing as well, I think.
Okay. That's interesting because, as you know, I'm thinking about, and I've done too, you know, writing stories for grandchildren and so on. And I ask myself the question, you know, I read what I've written, and you know, I'm not some. It's nothing to do with the content, but I think you've now just hit a nail on the head for me, and that is, you know, it could be about the style. And I'm not clear because I do write simply. That's part of what I've always strived to do as my style. So maybe it's not. I don't know, but so
there's sort of like a sense of authenticity or something about it. I don't know. It just seems to be, you know, just get to the heart of what needs to be said. And sure, you can write it eloquently, but make sure that a bit like, you know, what do you envisage it's being like in 3 years' time? It's just being clear about, okay, well, what is it that you want to say?
Yeah, and you want to write in connection with the furniture that you create.
Yeah, and the craft, you know, and it's an interesting space because I've been listening to a few podcasts and watching a few videos of people whose work I really respect.
Yeah.
And, you know, a couple of them in particular, that what I've really noticed about them when they're being interviewed in particular is they don't say a word until the question has been delivered. They sit there and they listen to the question, and then there's a short pause, and quite often the answers are, well, in respect to this part of your question, you know, I believe this and this is why I believe that. In respect to that part of the question, this is, you know, the way I do it, and this is why I do it that way. You know, like it's really quite clinical, where I think we've all experienced, maybe even more so in this age, is people start answering the question even before you finished asking it.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I've sort of really appreciate, their patience and desire to wait and to digest the question before they even attempt to answer it. And for me, that seems to get away or help tackle the issue about, well, this is the answer you're going to get, whether or not you've asked that question or not.
Yeah, whether I've understood it or not. But how do you think that's going to relate to your style of writing?
Well, I think what it does is it holds me accountable to make sure that the message that I'm delivering is authentic. Doesn't mean that people have to agree with it. I'm sure there'll be lots of people who won't agree with it for whatever reason. But I need to satisfy myself that I'm being honest to myself about the answer that I'm giving, or the proposition I'm putting, or the argument that I'm delivering, or whatever.
Yeah. And have you? Sorry.
And I was going to say, and that may well change the style of language that I've used for a long time, and make me think about how I structure sentences and how I deliver ideas and that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
You know who does it? Like when you write poetry, or if you ever decide to have a go at writing haiku, the Japanese style of poem, which is just the 4 lines, maybe 4 words per line. By gee, that makes you think about things.
Yeah. So have you did ask yourself the question, but did you answer the question? Why you want to do this? I'm talking about not the writing. I understand you've got the why, but wanting to even consider your writing style.
Well, the writing style and perhaps use of language, I think, is part of it. Like with the level of awareness I find myself with at the moment, and maybe I'm listening more intently than I have in the past, perhaps, is a more appropriate way. Simple example, like I can listen to, well, earlier this evening when I got home from work, I turned on the television and the weather guy was delivering the weather. And I was just listening to what he was saying, and I thought, like, he made some comment about the weather and obviously this and obviously that. And I thought, well, why is it obvious?
Yeah.
And some of his sentences, I thought, well, that doesn't even make sense. Like, what are you saying? And it was just this sort of vomiting out all of this stuff and not even thinking about what he was saying,
Yeah.
And I guess my thinking is that if I really respect and place in high regard the audience that I want to convey a message to, and I need to treat that message with respect in terms of how I deliver it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And you think your style would either hamper that or assist in that?
Yeah, I think so. And this idea of fearless honesty, I think, is, like from a customer service perspective, like say, for example, you're dealing with a customer complaint. I've seen too many written responses to customers' complaints that actually don't address the issue at hand. Lots of flowery language and all this sort of stuff, but actually doesn't acknowledge the issue that's been raised.
yeah, yeah.
And some of it falls into the category of weasel words, and other parts of it, I think, just shows complete lack of respect. You know, whether you agree with the complaint or not is beside the point. If someone has taken the time, in this instance, to make a complaint, then treat them with the courtesy to hear it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Clarify it, understand what they're saying, you know. There just seems to be, in some of those instances, you know, well, I think it's just a lack of honesty, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because yesterday, while we were waiting for some program to come on that we wanted to watch, there was the end of one of those soapies, not soapies, but a series that, I don't know what it was called, Dr. Somebody, or I mean, it goes back about 40 years. That's how old this bloody program was. And he wanted to complain about the fact that he was charged by the telephone company for a call that he didn't make, okay, to an area that he doesn't know anybody, and he wanted to just make the complaint. And so you know, and the next 10 or 15 minutes was about his frustrations in trying to get just a straight answer, you know. So yeah, I understand with you. I think it's I don't know what it is. It's certainly, you know, one has a sort of a disinterest in what somebody is saying. You have a generic answer, a patter to what happens, whether you're taking complaints or not, or just generally. Yeah. But whether that influences your style of writing, I don't know.
No, well,
yeah, I understand what you're getting at. Yeah,
it's a line of inquiry I want to pursue.
Yeah. And you've answered your own why. So, so yeah, that's good. Yeah.
You know, I think one thing too that I've sort of noticed a bit with some of the, I mean, the books that I tend to listen to tend to have, you know, a spiritual undercurrent to them, you know, because it's just because of what I choose to want to listen to.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I find myself, you know, very quickly forming a view, which is sort of dangerous in some sense because I want to keep a completely open mind, but forming a view about whatever's being delivered is being delivered as an opinion or as someone's actual experience. Like, try to illustrate, like there's this book I'm listening to at the moment. I'm having a bit of trouble getting into it, to be honest with you, but you know, she was talking about, you know, suffering, how suffering is both at the individual level, but it also has a mirror for, you know, the entire human population. So if I'm experiencing this particular issue, you know, her proposition is I should also be looking at what's the bigger collective pain. I'm thinking, well, how do you experience that? How do you, you know, say what the collective pain is? You know, how do you come to terms with what that might be?
Yeah, true.
You know, as an individual, I mean, how do you do that? And maybe she might tell me. I don't know.
Yeah. You can become aware of it.
Well, I mean, I suppose it's like anything. I mean, our intelligence gathering apparatus is not always that efficient, is it? You know, so it's it's important if we're sort of listening and noticing and hearing and tasting and all of that sort of thing, what's unfolding before us, that we not too quickly jump to conclusions, I guess.
Yeah, but how do we know if anything is true or false? Okay, or whether it's made up, or
logic would have to suggest that the only way you can determine whether something is true or false is to have complete information. And I don't know that as a human. I don't know at the moment as a human whether that's possible.
What complete information? Yeah, I guess there is, if you relate to science, there is complete information, and so you can get complete information in order to analyze or break down something, but to get complete information on what the effect is on an individual or group of individuals is impossible, absolutely impossible. There's some fundamental, quite crude things that people have been using for 100 years and still to this day, which incorporates the placebo effect
well, I mean, I guess that was probably what spawned the rise of propaganda too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We tried to understand, what the sentiment was on particular issues or whatever. Found out that we couldn't, so therefore we've tried to manufacture it.
Yeah. That's it. Absolutely. So whereas you take, let's say, something like your craft, okay, where you're dealing with something physical, you can video it, but you've still got to say, what your experience is personally. You can't say generally to the public, the experience of carving this will be this.
No, absolutely right. And that's, or more to the point, this is the right way to do something and this is the wrong way to do something.
Yeah.
Right for who?
Yeah, absolutely. I over the weekend, Sue and I went to Pajara, which is about an hour's drive south of us. We went on purpose, and the purpose was it was supposedly a long weekend, but once a year all the painters of Australia come out and paint in public, just anywhere. Okay. And anywhere in the town. I mean, it's a tiny little town, this Pajara, near probably about half an hour from Mandurah, which is much bigger here, and just further south and further inland as well. And I go there, and there's all these people standing around, and I ask them questions, and they're all so friendly. It is such a pleasant experience. So what paints are you using? And I discovered there's a new paint that I didn't know, called squash or something. Okay, and I'd never heard of it. But I liked the effect it was having on their canvas. Okay, it was like just a mixture of acrylic with some sort of water qualities. Okay. And then I watched people create, and I've been wanting, I mean, you tried to sell some of my paintings many years ago. And since I moved to Australia, I haven't lifted a paintbrush, okay? And I want to lift a paintbrush, but I know that I'm not good enough. Okay. And no matter who tries to dissuade me otherwise, I just can't believe it's good enough. Okay, but what I gathered at Banjara that I came away with, clearly, my opinion actually about myself is irrelevant. Okay, it's absolutely irrelevant. There were absolute beginners painting. They're all sort of my age, or they might be as young as you, but they're all around about that age. Okay, and I thought, goodness me, okay, yeah, I mean, I know I can do that, okay, or do that, and you know what I mean. I mean, okay, and I'd speak to them, and they just do it for the enjoyment of it, for nothing else. Okay, and they enjoy coming out and interacting with the passers-by that come to look, and some of them are working full time, and they just have paint whenever they can, and it certainly lifted my consciousness about being able to paint. Okay, and wanting.
And that's exactly one of the core points I feel about talking about my craft. It's not about comparing yourself with anyone else, because it's your expression.
Yeah.
And we all express ourselves uniquely, but that's the exploration, exploring your expression.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not about whether it's as good enough to be compared to that, or because if you're comparing yourself to others, you're on hiding to nothing.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever compared myself to other people. Somehow, I don't know what I've compared. I don't know what results in me saying I'm not good enough. Okay, I know it implies that everybody else is better, but I don't think it's that.
Or more to the point, compared to what?
Yeah. Compared to what? Okay. I think it's compared to what I expect of myself. Okay. When I do something, and when the finished product comes up, expect it to be better than that. I expected more of myself. Okay. Because what I wanted to express just wasn't there, okay, or it was a picture there which sort of made me rather look towards trying to do something a little bit more abstract.
So in terms of the creative process for you, then, like even before you pick up a paintbrush, like do you go through this sort of creative visualization? I mean,
no, I don't.
Because I mean, that's what I've discovered in recent years for myself, is that a big part of the work is doing the design and the planning around what is it that I want to create, and why do I want it to look like that, and what are the important design features that I want to create.
Yeah.
That, like, there was a time in the past where I would just walk into the workshop and it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'll just let it unfold before me. But when I've sort of sat down and sort of researched different designs and different effects and different types of joinery and all of those things, it's a completely different outcome, completely different energy about it.
Yesterday I was researching for my very last Get Set Up class ever, which is happening on the 1st of October. Right. I was researching AI, and I enjoy researching. Okay, and I enjoy the topic of artificial intelligence as well. But I came across a painting that an AI had done. And I looked at it,
Was
And
that the one that they've converted to a NFT or something? Is it?
I don't know about convert. I don't know NFP. That's a monetary value, isn't it?
It's just that, you know.
No, it was a competition. It was a competition that this guy had entered. A human being had entered, but he had used artificial intelligence to paint the picture. Okay. And the picture was brilliant. Okay, I loved the picture. Okay, and I thought, now, why? This was yesterday. Why do I love that picture? Okay, and it had something sort of mystical about it. Okay, I think it was called. You can probably Google it. You'll find the image. I think it was called The Gateway to Another Dimension. Okay, and I looked at it and I thought, that's the type of thing I would like to paint. Okay, and I don't know why. Okay, because everything other than scenery that I've painted, the other stuff,
well, like that painting up there that you did, that Tree of Life.
Yes.
That. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It has something. It's that Tree of Life I really enjoyed doing because I expressed myself. It's what my interpretation is of the tree. What does it include? Okay, and so yes, you can see the tree aspect of it, but then there's another aspect of it. Okay, and that now led my imagination to go to do what I did do, and I was very happy with that. And because I can still look at it, and I can have different interpretations for myself. Okay.
Like to give an example, like when in terms of the design thing, I mean, one of the design objectives, if that's the right way to describe it, in terms of the style that I like to build now, is one that looks a style that looks very simple, but as you look closer, you notice all of these details, which adds a layer of sort of complexity and intrigue to it, but it doesn't lose the simple lines and that sort of woo-wee or wabi-sabi sort of undertones of it, of the simplicity and the authenticity of it. But it's got those other elements to it, should you choose to want to explore it.
Okay. Yeah.
So those sorts of ideas guide the style. Because like I found myself getting really frustrated because it's so, what am I going to build next? And it would just be like looking at different pieces and stuff like that. It's like, I don't want to do that, but create something, so, and that's when I sort of put some texture to, well, what's the style that I want to portray, like what interests me and how will I go about that, and I found myself a little bit like what you just described yourself. I just found myself quite wanting in the design area. I thought, oh geez, I'm hopeless. Like this was the sort of language, I'm hopeless. I don't know how to design anything. I can copy someone else's creation, but I can't create my own,
Okay.
How bloody useless is that,
Spot on. Yes. So it's in like my stories. Okay. I mean, the two I've written, it's obviously we're writing for children now, but it doesn't take away what's in my head. I've always seemed to be, when I do something sort of free like that, is take the real life, sure, okay, like I did with my paintings, take the real life. There's a face of a person, and so on. There's a flower, that I painted. But I take the story of the person, but then I always find myself going into another dimension. Okay, I'm talking about, goblins or fairies, or
I mean,
nymphs.
isn't that in many respects the definition of spirituality, isn't it? Because I mean, if spirituality, for example, was a study of the physical, then it would be quite a limited study, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, that in my mind is what spirituality is about. It's an exploration of the non-physical.
Okay.
Which you and your language is other dimensions, which is that's exactly the
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So that's what interests me then. Okay, so now,
what a creative canvas you have there. I mean, goodness.
Well, that's the point. You see, now I think to myself, how do I translate that into painting? Okay, and that's a challenge in the painting, because I know I'd like to paint spirituality. Okay,
but do you sketch before you paint, or do you? And I don't mean like trace. Yeah. I mean, do you just sort of doodle and sort of say, I want something to look like this? Because like Leonardo da Vinci and a lot of those sort of masters, they'd have doodles and stuff all over the place, wouldn't they? Before they.
I don't know. I've never studied them. Maybe I should be studying something like it. The last one was Michelle, a friend of mine, who's reads cards and things like that. Drew a card and said, I drew the card 81 for you. Okay, so I said, fine, okay. And she gave me some background of what it was. I even Googled it and found out some more information. And then I immediately went to my pad and I drew. In fact, I asked Sue, because she's really good at sketching. Draw 81 on this page for me. Okay. Now I've got 81 in pencil and nothing else. And now I didn't have any idea what I was going to do. Okay. So, like an arsehole, I picked up my pen and I wrote one or two words on the page about what 81 means, like end cycle, whatever else. And there were other things. And I thought, okay, big deal. I've got 81 and I've got some interpretations, but I want to paint. Okay, so I take my paint and I've only got acrylic paint. I've got water paint too, but I took out the acrylic paints that I wanted to, because I finished off in South Africa with acrylic paints, and I started just putting on paints. Okay, and I thought, okay, that's fine. I've got no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just putting paint on canvas and I'm putting different colors on, and I want to see what happens. And so yeah, it's there. I mean, I could take it and show you what that. In fact, let me bloody well go and get it. Hold on. Okay. I haven't got my. Let me put my earphones on in a minute, but let me. Okay. So now you can see the bits that I wrote. Okay. Don't know if you can read them or not.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Threw some color around, and that is what I'm talking about. and it turned out, in my opinion, it wasn't anything. Okay, it just wasn't anything. And put some paint in, and I thought, okay. The words that I wrote in here, new beginnings. Okay, stay focused. That's one of the things. And initiate and release old. Okay, so now I thought, well, by writing those there, maybe that will attract certain colors to them from me intuitively. Okay, and I did in the sense. New beginnings was yellow. I don't know. Initiate turned out to be green. Release old was brown. Okay, stay focused over here, purple and orange and so on. But that is what came. Oh, in the middle was dream. Okay, that is purple. So you see what I mean, and that's why I'm frustrated at the moment, because I'm not getting a handle on anything, and I think I'm making excuses to myself as well. Yeah.
But I think that's the challenge you're setting yourself though too, though, isn't it? Is to explore that. It's okay. Well, how can I picture some of these abstract ideas?
Yeah, and maybe that's what it is. I mean, I was proud enough that I went just the other day and I did that. Okay, that I'd actually got paint to paper, and so.
And I'd urge you to continue to explore those ideas.
Okay.
I mean, instead of words, maybe try and use images, for example.
Yeah.
New beginnings. What's a new beginning image? Well, for me, it's imagery like seeds, or
sunrise.
Yeah, sunrise, all those things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think you're on the right track. I mean, it was you who gave me some advice a couple of weeks ago about take the first step.
Yes.
After you've taken the first step, take another step.
Okay. Maybe you're right. Maybe if I, things like new beginnings, it is a spiritual thing. Okay.
Absolutely is.
And so is initiate.
Well, that whole circle of life is that, isn't it?
Is what?
Well, the imagery around it,
Oh, the imagery. Yeah.
I mean, the whole circle of life is about new beginnings, about,
yeah,
letting go and being now, and it's sort of funny, like one of the things I sort of think about a bit recently is, like the Buddhists have this term, I think it's bardo, I think it is, which is their term for the space between birth and death. This idea of bardo. But the reality is quite different, like whilst we sort of say, my life, I was born then, this was my childhood and this was my teenage years and adolescence and so on. But we talk about it in the sense of, well, that's me. But in another sense, it's not me, because that was me then, and that's not me now.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And the idea of, I like the word sort of like an unfolding, like a flower blooming, like this sort of unfurling idea. And if you think about your life in the context of a flower, well, it really is up through the budding stage, then the opening, then if it gets pollinated, then turning into a seed pod, and then starting again, sort of thing, So and the liberating thing, and even the joyous thing associated with that is that it's a cycle. It's something. There is no death. It's just the transition from one phase to another. And for people who fear death, or or see death as an ending, it's a real invitation to really rethink that. Because if you're frightened of dying, then are you also frightened of, becoming a teenager, then becoming a young adult, and then becoming middle-aged?
Yeah.
Because in their own senses, you pass away, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
And if you realise that, okay, well, no, it's just another transition. For me, anyway, it sort of invites an openness and a curiosity about, okay, well, what next? What's coming next? I mean, just the exploration of the idea, and then the creative expression of that. Well, that'll be something different again, won't it? So.
Yeah, I think you've now what you said. Take something like New Beginnings, or and maybe I've started it by doing the 81.
Well, I think what you've successfully done there is identified a range of key contexts around the idea of 81. So there are new beginnings, but there's also letting go, and there's the dreaming, and then there's the ending, and then there's
carry on exploring it.
Yeah,
that's what
and it doesn't have to be in a single image either.
Yeah, no, I agree. Maybe exploring each one as part of a series of unfolding that imagery, starting with new beginnings and the rising sun. Yeah.
The sunrise it's a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
And it's a unique perspective because you can only see a sunrise
once.
Well, each of them are unique, absolutely. But to see a sunrise, you have to be on a rotating sphere. Because if you're sitting out there in space, the sun neither rises nor sets. It's just there.
Right. Yeah.
So there's something special about it,
So explore them in relation to the fact that they are spiritual aspects of creation
and aspects of just everyday living. They really are. Really helps, sort of encourages an increased awareness. I think we're all sort of guilty of, in one time or another, when we think about our spiritual journey, we're always looking for these big aha moments.
Yeah.
And they're right there before our eyes anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, last week you wanted to come back to parasites. Okay. Maybe you don't want to anymore. I don't know.
No, I think we do. I actually hadn't given it any thought. Rather remiss of me. But.
Yeah, no, that's about.
So we were in the context of the gut. Is that what we were?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know. I mentioned that. My daughter had wanted me to, do a parasite clean out and so on. And
yeah, I saw that what you said through.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny? Yeah, because one of the books I listened to not that long ago actually. He was talking about context, and a big sort of common theme throughout his book was, well, what if you're wrong? And that was sort of like the reoccurring question. Well, what if you're wrong?
Yeah.
And he was sort of saying, what if being human is the reason for your existence is driven by your stomach? Because your stomach wants this, it's like a tube. It wants to put food in one end and expel waste out the other end. And it's evolved a brain to think up creative ways to ensure that there's a constant food supply. So we're all at mercy to this insatiable stomach.
Okay. And it has a more powerful brain than in the head.
That's right. Yeah. So all these things that we think that we're being very clever about in terms of careers and building wealth and all that sort of stuff, the underlying aim of all of that is to ensure a good quality food supply.
Yeah.
Oh, what a disappointment.
And we've got to keep the parasites away so that they don't destroy our real purpose for being here.
It's thought-provoking, isn't it? To explore some of those ideas. It's like, oh, hang on a minute.
It really is. That is, it really is thought-provoking. Because you know that we stumble across these old phrases that we've grown up with, and things like, do we eat to live or do we live to eat?
Yeah.
And it really is interesting, because from our spiritual point of view, perspective, that really makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Does.
It really does. We've got to keep this this holographic image alive so the soul can experience. Okay, so you've got to get the soul back on its path, and it's part of the way it's been designed. It's got to stay here on earth over and over again until something happens and it no longer has to come back here, and it's now evolved. And it's all because the soul needs to evolve. And who the hell is the soul? Okay, it lives in here somewhere.
Isn't it a powerful question where you could almost go and deliver a like a PhD thesis, and the last line of that thesis is, but I might be wrong.
Yeah. I think the bottom line is you got a strong immune system, but then you don't know if you've got a strong immune system easily, okay, other than getting coughs and colds. But certainly science tells us that there are certain ingredients that if you eat them, they're going to eliminate any worms or parasites that don't belong in your stomach. Okay?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think your gardening proves that, doesn't it? You get the the soil pH right, and the types of plantings you put in there, and pests and weeds don't predominate. Whereas if it gets out of balance, then weeds and pests, thrive.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Okay, and it also works in practice with the garden as well, because you can then pick up the things that are not healthy for your body from the garden. Okay, which normally, if you have a strong immune system, then the immune system will just take care of them. But otherwise, they then take occupation, like squatters, and they squat there and proliferate.
And as you were saying last week, you can do certain things, but all it does is just move them from one location to another. So.
Yeah. If you like for example, the most powerful thing we were talking about was castor oil. And I haven't got the guts because I know how bad it tastes to buy castor oil. Okay, so now I look for reasons not to buy castor oil. And I think, well, one of the other things, pumpkin pips. I take pumpkin pips. Okay. Other thing is turmeric. I take turmeric. Okay. And so I go through, I think, all the things that are good for getting rid of parasites, I'm eating, and now I'm putting them in my smoothie that I've started making for the first time the last few days. And
I tell you what, that raises a question for me. And I guess my question of you is consistent with the idea of fasting, so creating breaks, if you like. That's the right word, isn't it? When you take things like turmeric and whatever, say for example turmeric, should we routinely take a break from it?
Yeah, that's a question that I think I can answer quite easily. Okay, because it's a very relevant question. You see, anything that your body naturally stores, then you don't take it regularly. Maybe take it for a month or two, even if you're focusing on something specific and you have a reason. But just for general health, the answer is yes. Okay, unless the body doesn't store it well. Okay, and generally it's the B vitamins and the C that the body doesn't store. Okay. And the things that one needs to be looking out for, because they don't store it, in some cases it's very difficult to find some of the things that you need, like B12, for example. It's very difficult to find B12 in a plant-based diet. Okay,
is that because it shows up like in red meat or something? Is it?
Well, yeah, largely it does. It shows up in liver of red meat. Okay. Only in the liver, and it's not really manufactured there, but because of the combinations of the plants that the cows eat and how it accumulates in the liver, you then get it in the liver. But largely, B12, would be found naturally in things like seaweed. Okay. Now we humans don't eat seaweed naturally. Okay, and it's not in fish. Okay, and it's a particular chemical that when the soil is absolutely nutritious and the plants you're eating, it goes beyond organics. Okay. But that's the closest we can get in a conversation like this. The chemicals that are produced, which they got a long name, okay, are then taken up. It's not called vitamin B12 in that state. There are different chemicals that get into the plants, and then they, let's say we eat them raw, whatever they. There are different chemicals that are formed that we should be able to, and I say should because we do not, okay? We should be able to put that together in our bodies and make B12, the equivalent of B12, okay? There's so little known in 2022 about B12, okay? So anyway, so they do manufacture the chemical artificially, and Sue and I take a B12. Now that is something that does not get stored in the body. Okay, for short periods, like a week or so, yes. Okay, but it doesn't. So you need to look, and then all the B vitamins. Okay, and vitamin C. Okay. will store for a short period of time and then disappear out. So, in other words, you're talking about, generally speaking, your common or garden vegetables, okay, particularly the cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower and spinach and stuff like that, okay, green beans and those sort of things. Now, the other interesting thing that I learned yesterday, okay, is that it is far healthier. Now, let me start somewhere else and get to that. We are told to eat our greens and chew them well, chew any food that we eat well, okay? And there's a reason for that, because it breaks down the actual solid food into a smaller possible and puts saliva around it and then sends it into your stomach, and it makes it easier for the nutrients to be extracted and used, okay? But it's not very efficient, okay, that process. The more efficient way now, by leaps and bounds, is to chop that spinach leaf, for example, into a liquid. You chop it, you blend it with water and make a drink out of it. And there's nothing left of the spinach leaf, it's all in the water. So it's far finer than you can chew it. Okay? And so what happens is now you're getting something, in some cases, probably 100 times more absorption efficiency finally into the cell, okay, than you were by just eating that, okay.
It's funny you say that, because I remember watching a documentary about diets for soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the findings might have been out of World War I or something like that, is that those armies that were fed like stews and those types of meals, their endurance was much higher than people who sat, than armies, for example, that sat down and ate like a steak, or slabs of meat and vegetables,
Yeah.
And they're sort of saying, so from a military perspective, when soldiers are to go into battle, that's exactly what they do, is they feed them like that pureed food.
Right. Well, that's the bottom line now in 2022, is that a smoothie, which is blended at high speeds into this liquid, is the healthiest way to build your immune system and keep it there, okay? And once it's there, you don't need large quantities, okay?
So do you think some of these dietary drinks, like, the man shake and the lady shake, and is that kind of what they are?
No, if they've taken them and turned them to powder, okay, you're losing an enormous amount of the nutritional value.
So they just put bulk in your stomach, but it's got no nutritional value.
It has a tiny bit of nutritional value, but a lot of the chemicals are lost in that process, okay? The one thing you can do that doesn't lose them, you can freeze something. So, you can freeze a fresh vegetable, okay, and then unfreeze it and eat it that same day, okay? Or you can grind it or blend it and then immediately freeze it, okay? That's still acceptable. The ideal is to drink it the day that you blend it, okay? And then you've got the option of really adding all the absolute, what's the right word? The vegetables that you can choose the vegetables that to get the best balance of all nutrients, okay? Okay, and you don't need meat to get any of those nutrients. Okay, so you can get them from fresh vegetables and fruits, and particularly berries.
Is a smoothie different than a juice combination, for example? Or?
Yeah, juices are not healthy. Okay, juice extracting the juice from an orange or a guava or whatever is not healthy, because the health lies in what you've left behind. It's the bulk.
So even like a carrot juice.
Carrot juice. No, you've got to, if you want a carrot juice, then you blend the carrot in water so that you have all the fiber that's around the carrot.
And do you cook it first, or do you just do it raw?
Both work. Okay. Both work. If you, I do it raw. Okay. So why the hell cook it? Because they both work much the same, but it depends on your blender. Your blender is difficult with a carrot. They can be pretty.
Do you skin them, or do you just skins and everything?
No, I do. I wash them. I wash everything. Okay, but I don't skin them. No, I put them in, and even sometimes the carrot tops, if they come with it from there, I wash them and I put them in as well. And then you just add berries or fruits that you like. Okay, that is tasty to you, and you then add that in until it gives you that taste or that sweetness that you want. I mean, if you just do a green only, it tastes like you're eating cut grass. Okay.
Yeah, it could be quite bitter.
Yeah, it's so you it's good to get the nutrient, particularly from berries. Okay, and again, you can get the organic frozen berries. Okay, and I see my blackberry plant now, and the veranda is getting little tiny seeds on it, and another month or two, I'll have my own fresh berries. But yeah, so you can add those berries. You can add whatever fruit. Sue loves mango, so we add mango, and
is it to the smoothie that you put in some turmeric or some cinnamon or those sorts of things as well? Or?
I don't at this stage, but I'm very, very new to it. I've just finished researching extensively, as you know, like I do, and so I've got a clear picture and so on. So I'm trying to just get the taste right first. But certainly, also if you're going to put seeds in, it's another thing I've learned. Then seeds are obviously pack a punch as well of health, but they pack. Sorry,
like hemp seeds or something like that.
Hemp seed and flax seed, okay, and other seeds, okay. But the best thing is to chia seeds too. The best is to grind the seeds for the same reason that I mentioned earlier about trying to chew and get something down. Okay, it's not easy for your body to digest those seeds, but break them up. My goodness me! Suddenly, the nutritional value of that seed in your stomach jumps enormously. Okay, so it's always best.
And so with the smoothie, do you put like yogurt in it or anything like that at all? Or?
No, I don't. I don't put dairy in at all. I don't eat dairy at all.
Okay.
Sue does, but I don't. No, I just start off with water. Okay, and you're getting all this juice. Okay, coming from all sorts of different directions, and you top it up. So finally, you're drinking a juice. Okay, that is very tasty, and it is thick as you like it to be. Okay,
and is that a meal?
Far more than a meal. Yeah, yeah.
So if you have a smoothie, you don't necessarily have anything else?
In the future, I won't. No. Okay. But I'm waiting for the delivery. It actually comes tomorrow from the organic farm that we get all our stuff from, with the right sort of quantities of and the varieties of things that we want to put into the smoothies. Up until today, I've just been putting what we actually had around. Okay, and So and I want to put things in that I haven't put in. I want to experiment a little bit more with it. You can probably see on the counter behind me over there, I've got a whole lot of things out on the counter to experiment with, to maybe, add some beans to it. I haven't done that. Okay.
Celery, those sort of things. Yeah.
Oh, celery, definitely. Now we've ordered celery for tomorrow, going to arrive. So definitely, I've had celery growing for 2 years, and then it died this winter. So definitely celery. Yeah, so it doesn't matter what you put in it, as long as you get in a variety of broadly the different categories of food.
That's a good idea, isn't it? Because if you're growing celery, you just need to take a couple of sticks as you need it, don't you? You just leave the plant in the ground.
Yeah, I did for 2 years. It just kept on growing. Okay, just kept on growing enormously. Whenever we felt like it, I do that now with my my microgreens. I grow the microgreens, just chop them off, throw a handful in the blender, and and because the microgreens also pack a punch, depending which ones we're talking about. And I actually, it was one of the classes I gave a lot with Get Set Up over the 2 years was microgreens, how to grow them, the health benefits, and all. I was thinking the other day of actually putting it into some sort of book, because I've got all my own pictures of what I've done. They're not very professional, unfortunately. I just sort of snapped them without any thought about, just for a record, really, for myself. But that can change, and and give that book away. To people who I want to contribute to helping people survive in the coming times, which are going to be sooner than one thinks.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So definitely, and growing your own essential veggies in pots as well, so that if you don't have a garden, then you can do it on your balcony. Yeah. I've done classes and research on that, and I do it as well. I grow some of mine, particularly the herbs I grow in pots. Yeah. So
it's really inspirational.
Yeah, and here I'm knocking myself over the knuckles till I can't paint. Anyway, if you want to know anything about parasites, I think we've got enough. Pumpkin pips and turmeric are the big deal. There also are other things, that there was something else I can't remember now. Of course, the main thing I've forgotten was garlic. Okay.
Yeah.
Garlic, oh my goodness, to get rid of parasites and to build your immune system and get rid of anything that's not in your system. Over and above parasites, well, I suppose most of them are parasites. Fresh garlic, okay, and so you can chop it up and put it, but it must be fresh. Again, don't go to the power side. And also coconut is another good one.
Fresh coconut.
Yeah, you can get coconut oil as well. That organic coconut oil as well. But and fresh coconut. But you can chop.
Oh well, I'm going to start experimenting.
Yeah, and let's share what we find it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Very good. Very good discussion tonight. I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. I'm glad. I didn't even ask you. Do you mind if I recorded it? Because last week I wanted to go back on something we said. I couldn't remember what it was, and I didn't do a recording. Yeah.
No, that's fine. That's good.
Okay. Do you want a link? Do you want a link to it, or do you?
Yeah, you might as well.
Okay.
I think it comes up automatically anyway in Skype.
Yeah, if I upload it, I will. Yeah. No, that's fine.